We're back. Your boy, the one and only, the kid, Tommy D, nonprofit sector connector. We're back, top of the house, just below the house. What? Just below the roof of the house, in the attic, 2 flights up from where I get my coffee. That's right. Every single Friday morning, I have the pleasure and honor to have this opportunity for conversations with leaders in the nonprofit sector. I get to do it every Friday to have these conversations to help nonprofit organization leaders tell their story and amplify their message. I get to share the reach that I have, the relationships I have to shine this light on the incredible work that the sector is doing day in and day out. And if you hang out with me in the real world or the pretend world or social media world, wherever we hang out, you know how passionate I am about this work. I got interviewed on a podcast yesterday, and it was all about connections. It was all about relationships, and it was all about highlighting the work of the sector. So a couple things I got to highlight before we get started, before I even introduce my guest, who I am so fired up to speak to, Katrena Perou, today. I mean, we met over the summer. We'll get into all that. Just a handful of weeks. It's October 4th right now of 2024. And just a handful of weeks from now, October 29th, 2024, will be the fourth annual New York City Imagine Awards. And just to show you that I'm not promoting the Imagine Awards, my guest and her organization are finalists in not one, but two categories, which we will talk to or speak about shortly. Go to the website if you want to come to the Imagine Awards, NYC, ImagineAwards.com, Tuesday, October 29th from 6 to 10 at Gustavino's underneath the 59th Street Bridge. 409 East 59th Street. What a cool venue. We've been there the last 3 years. The last 2 years. The first year was at the Edison Ballroom, and then the event got too large with the number of attendees. So now we're out over at Gustavino's, and what a cool place that is. If you haven't been, you should be there with us the night of the Imagine Awards. So I tell you, I'm fired up about this show every single week that I get to do it. We're somewhere in the 180. I'll look it up quickly for you at some point, but we're right around 190-ish number of episodes. That's a big deal, man. And I appreciate the applause and everything and from people, but that's a big deal to do 190 episodes of something where I spent about thank you. I spent about 100 weeks talking about it before I started to do it every week. So I say to everybody, be inspired by me. If you want to do the thing, I realized something the other day. I was watching a video by Jesse Itzler, who's famous business guy, like thought leader in entrepreneurship and stuff like that. And he has this idea about I've been telling everybody, this is me for a second, not Jesse Itzel, but I've been telling everybody I got 50 years left to live for like the last 4 or 5 years. So I keep it at 50, so it just keeps stretching it out. But I was listening to something by Jesse Itzler, and if you think about it statistically, if you're 46 years old like I am, your life might be half over. There's no freaking time to wait. Just do the thing is what I'm trying to say to you all. Don't wait 2 years to do it. Do you want to do the podcast? Do the podcast. You want to start a radio show, a TV show? Do that. You want to build a nonprofit organization that changes the world? Please do that. Don't wait. And I think I think we'll all be inspired by the mind of my friend Katrena Perou and of Inspiring Minds NYC to do that. Build the community, build the relationships. And I was watching your TEDx video, by the way, Katrena, this morning, and you have certainly, you said, heard the word no plenty of times. So it's not like everybody's handing out everything that you want in the world, right? We got to come up against those no's. However, and I'll let you get into it, I just keep rambling. But the thing is, we need to do the thing you want to do, gang. Try it out. I promise you, there's a good chance it's not going to work out how you thought it was. But guess what? You did it. And you can own that. So I own this show. I love the fact that I've done so many episodes of the show. And guess where I'll be next Friday? Right back here in the attic with another leader of a nonprofit organization, helping them tell their story and amplify their message. All right, I'm fired up. This is an important conversation. If it wasn't for the New York City Imagine Awards and Ken Serini and his vision and the Long Island Imagine Awards, I wouldn't get to meet many of the great leaders I get to meet through that, through being on the committee. But my favorite part, after we get the applications in and after we as the committee make the recommendations who the semifinalists are going to be, and we send that semifinalist list over to the judges, what happens is we on the committee get to go out and interview a handful of these executive leaders. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm Tommy D, maybe it's because I'm the nonprofit sector connector. I always get to have incredible conversations with these people. Shout out to Kellyanne Serini for always saying, Tommy D, listen, where do you want to go? Who do you want to interview? And what I put in my ask, but I also say wherever you need me is where I'm going to go, because any of these leaders and any of these organizations will change my day when I get to meet them. And I drove out to Brooklyn once. I guess it was August. and I had the opportunity, right? Oh, I think it was August, Katrina, because maybe it was earlier because it was before summer camps. Maybe it was June or July. I'm not I'm having
It was
trouble.
probably July or August. I can't
Yeah.
remember the exact.
Yeah. So first of all, good morning. Hello, my friend. How are you? What's going on?
Good morning. I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing
Thanks for
great,
having.
man. You're welcome. Sorry to cut you off there. Yeah, you're welcome. I'll tell you, I'm always excited about this show, but I kind of put myself in this paradigm this morning of going to the website, watching your TEDx talk, remembering I went back to the old application, not the old application, but the Imagine Awards application. And I don't even know if I put a final thought on that, folks. After we get to do those interviews, we get to do a write-up to supplement the original application. And to say I spend hours on that would be, probably an understatement because I try and I'm like, I can't be at this table. And I know I said this to Katrina because I say it to everybody. You and I can't be at the table with the judges, right? But how do we tell that story? So I try to take our conversation, turn that into, a well-written essay to explain the importance. And I'm by no means taking the credit for it, but I am jazzed to be a part of the fact that there's you're finalists in two different categories in the New York City Imagine Awards. And I never know because they wouldn't tell me. I never know who the winners are till the night of, like most people. But I just feel good about this, to be honest with you. So let's jump in. I mean, there's so much of your story that you could tell, as we discussed earlier in the week, is I want to know about your story. When we sat in that classroom over the summer and really you got to tell me and give me an understanding. That's one part of the story is you and your background, and then it's the story of what is this organization doing day in and day out and how it's affecting the lives of young people and literally transformative work. And that's, that word transformative, sometimes becomes cliche, but like this is legitimately transforming generations because of the work you all are doing. So it's a conversation with you and me. We're having a cup of coffee together. It's just a bunch of people listening and watching. So let's take it away. Let's start with your story, please, Katrina.
Yeah, so again, thank you for having me on your show today. Yes, my name is Katrena Perou. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called Inspiring Minds NYC that I started here in New York in 2019. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, back in 1980. So it makes me 44 years old. And the biggest inspirations in my life are my parents. My father was a preacher. He actually just recently passed away in August. And my mother, was a stay-at-home mom. So she gave me a lot of the values that I have right now. She taught me how to be patient, how to love, how to care, and how to have faith that everything's going to be all right no matter what's going on. And both of them are very instrumental in what I'm doing today. But one of my biggest passions growing up was sports. As young as I could remember, I loved playing basketball. I used to. It's different now than how it was back in the day. Like right now, there's a lot of organized sport activities for little kids to play in. But when I was growing up, we were just playing in the streets.
Yeah.
Like latchkey kids. We would leave the house, go to someone's backyard, and just play basketball all day. And that ended up being one of my early passions, basketball and also art. Um, Art is a genetic trait that runs in my family. My mom and all her brothers and sisters are all artists. And I inherited that trait to be able to draw as well. So that was also another outlet and escape for me. And I remember maybe like eighth grade or ninth grade, my father told me that he didn't have money for me to go to college. But he also shared this proverb with me, Proverbs 18, verse 31. And he said, your gifts will make room for you and bring you in front of great men. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And he's just like, well, you're very talented. You can do a lot of things. You can play sports, you're an artist, I also played instruments. And he's like, if you invest in your skills and sharpen them and become really good at what you do, you can eventually earn a full scholarship to college. So right when he told me that, I locked in, all through high school. I never came home after school. I was on the basketball team, the track team, the cross country team. I was in the marching band. I was doing everything. And by the time I was a senior in high school, I had over 25 full scholarship offers. And
25, if I could interrupt 1 second, you had 25 full scholarship offers.
full scholarship offers, most of them for basketball, a few for track.
Uh-huh.
And I ended up choosing Penn State University, and that's where I went on a full basketball scholarship for 4 years. And I like to tell that story because that relates to what I do now. Like
Yeah.
I share that same proverbs with kids that I work
Yeah.
with in New York City that all y'all have skills and talents. If you invest in your skill and talent, and come to after school programs, because we run after school programs across 20 schools in New York City, we are here to invest in you, and if you become good enough in the things that you love, by the time that you graduate, you can have a full scholarship as well, and I've been able to actually create a space to help kids, travel along that journey as well. So there's a lot of connection or correlation between how I grew up to what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, thank you for the backstory and my condolences on your dad. I didn't realize he had passed. I knew how important he was in your journey as you shared with me when we met. Um, you know, that piece of so much stands out from what you said specifically about locking in. Like, your dad told you, I don't have the resources to get to college, but you actually have these innate talents that you gotta
Mhm.
lock in on. And you said you locked in. And, you know, um, there's that opportunity, and I think that's what the word I'm thinking is really important to think about is there's an opportunity that we can take advantage of right in front of us, right? Not everybody's given everything, not everybody's given the financial resources, but we certainly have these God-given talents that we can accentuate and as you say, lock in on. I'm thinking about one particular 13-year-old in my life who's a baseball kid and wants to play ball. And last night, actually, our New York Mets pulled out an incredible win, and we just got to keep going and see how long the Metsies can keep going, but very exciting if you're a Met fan. And there's another degree, right, Katrina? There's another level of getting locked in. And it's like where, you put these blinders on and you just go and you just put in more time, put in more effort. It was MJ, Michael Jordan. I think I forget the exact story, but he didn't make the JV team. But then he just applied himself and got locked in, and then he's Michael Jordan gang. If you don't know that one, Google it because we don't have time to explain that story to you. But the point is, like, there is that, and I guess I have to guess a woman who comes out of Cleveland. There's probably another basketball player that is super important in your world, right?
Uh, talking about as of right now, that's
I'm just
playing.
saying, like LeBron. I mean, that's just a LeBron story. I'm just thinking, I just think like hometown story and stuff like that.
Um, well, I would say like growing up, yeah, LeBron definitely, because one thing about Clevelanders is that we're very loyal to our sports teams. We just
Yeah,
are,
yeah,
even when they're not winning. Like the Browns were terrible for years. The
yeah,
stadium would still be packed with people, so we are always going to be, cheering for our hometown heroes.
yeah,
So definitely LeBron is one of the people that's at the top of my list as someone that and he was I'm a lot older than him.
yeah,
So as I was growing up, he wasn't necessarily the one that I was looking up to.
yeah.
It was a Michael Jordan era
It was. Yeah,
when I
yeah,
was growing up.
yeah, yeah. Right. Same. It's funny. I have a very good friend of mine who I wanted to introduce you to, and when you talked about art a couple minutes ago, it reminded me that, and we probably talked about it when we first met. One of the boards I sit on is called the Spirit of Huntington Arts Center, and I want to have you come out for a tour. You and I go out there one day. And my friend Michael Katakis, who's the executive director, grew up in Cleveland as well. And he talks to me about the Browns and that whole story, like you say, not a great team for a long, long time. So um, I want to get into, some when we talked, I remember asking you when we talked about Penn State, and I was like, oh, well, you played, weren't you were in the Final Four during,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, Final Four in 2000. We
Right.
lost to Connecticut, just like everybody else that year.
Well, that was UConn. I mean, that the UConn women's team, forget about it, right? I mean,
Yeah, it was UConn. It was when Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi and Swin Cash, I think their whole entire team went to the league.
and that was my perfect segue because that was my question because I asked you that when we got together, and I wanted to understand, like, did you have that desire? Was there interest for you to go that direction?
I would say when I first started college, I was probably really interested in it.
Yeah,
But then once I started to really have the college experience as a basketball player, it became more like a job. It started to feel more like a job, and it felt less fun. And yes, there were definitely fun moments. To me, my favorite moments was when the NCAA tournament started and we got to go around and travel, because that's when you actually get to, really experience the fruits of your labor.
yeah,
It's showtime.
yeah,
But all that work leading up to it, I realized my senior year I started to have less passion for basketball, and I wanted to try new things. And my advisor found me an internship to be an education intern in New York. So my first time coming to New York was my senior year in college for an internship at a women's sports foundation, and I was an education intern there. And one thing I can say about my life that's been pretty consistent is I've always chased my passion,
Mm-hmm.
and I chase it as far as I can until I can't no more or until I lose interest. And then I'm passionate in something else and I chase that. So there was a stage in my life where basketball and sports was my passion, and I went, full throttle in that direction. And then it started to shift. And now I have a passion for education and community organizing. And the same discipline and the same work ethic that I put into being an athlete, I now apply to what I'm doing right now. And now this is what I'm passionate about, you know?
Yeah. I know that. I get it. I love it. I hear it. I mean, good on you. You took it. Yeah, this is the wrong way to say it. I don't know. Took advantage, saw an opportunity and said, let me get in. Let me get really focused on my sports and get this, get the full ride. Penn State, that's no slouch. Getting your degree from Penn State, that's a
Yeah.
home run. And getting it on the backs of, the hard work you did as an athlete. That's great. What did you before we go to break, because I want to set this up before we go to break. What did you study while you were at Penn State?
Art education.
Art education, right? So again, there's that education piece. So when we come back, I want to talk a little bit. Let's start with that internship because, Cleveland to State College, right? Penn State, and then coming out up to New York City. There's obviously some transition and all that we could talk about. I want to talk about really that as you did that internship and where that started you on this journey of focusing on education. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
All right, we'll be right back. Philanthropy and Focus. Katrena Perou, Inspiring Minds NYC, and your boy, the one and only nonprofit sector connector, Tommy D.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
If you don't have your health, what do you really have? It's time to feel good in your body and shift from struggle to ease. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Tripp, your host of Nourish the Soul, where we explore the sacred wisdom of your body while you sit back, relax, and go on a journey of self-discovery. Join me every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to awaken your heart, transform your well-being, and unlock a deeper understanding of yourself.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
And we're back, everybody. We're back. The show is back. Tommy D is back. Katrena Perou is back here from Inspiring Minds NYC. So Katrina, right before the break, we were talking about graduation happens and you get this internship to come up to New York City and start working in arts education as an intern, correct?
Yes, correct.
So let's take it from there. Let's hear about how that journey started.
Yeah, so I needed to do an internship in order to graduate, and I originally was going to try to do something on campus, something local, because that was like the easiest route. And then they found me this internship at the Women's Sports Foundation in New York, and I read what the description was, and it seemed really interesting. So I applied, I got accepted, and that started my journey in New York. And I just remember being really nervous and kind of scared because I was used to my safety net at Penn State, I had everything paid for, my dorm, my clothes, my food, like everything for 4 years. And now I'm going to New York State, New York. I've never been before. I don't have any friends or family there, but I felt like I was supposed to be here. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and we're going to see where it goes.
And
You know,
you weren't traveling back and forth. I mean, you came on, you had to find housing and everything in the city somewhere.
Yeah, well, the internship they had private housing for
Okay.
us, people who lived in the community that had rooms. So I
Okay.
stayed in this woman's basement with three other interns who were from other parts of the country as well. And it was a great experience. I got a chance to just kind of like venture out, meet new people. Um, they, I was supporting the education initiatives at the Women's Sports Foundation, and I created their National Women's Sports Day poster that went out all over the country. And I remember them telling me that I had to use photographs and put a collage of pictures on this poster. And I was like, I want to draw it. Like, please let me draw it. And they told me no. They was like, no, we always use photographs, so please use photographs. And the theme for that year was succeed in sports, lead in life. And I had a visual of what that could look like. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go home, I'm going to sketch it, and then I'm going to bring it back and see what they say. So I went home and I did a rough sketch. And it was like the evolution of a girl starting off as a little girl playing a sport and then growing up playing different sports and then walking into a career. And I showed them the image, and they actually loved it. And then they gave me the green light to illustrate the poster. So
Oh,
there's
so no photos.
no photos, and I illustrated their one and only. All the other posters they have every year is photographs, but the one illustrated poster is the one that I did back in 2003.
Do you have a copy of it?
Yeah, I do. I have
You
a
do?
copy.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
Is that framed? Because I think that's just that into itself. It goes back to something I said earlier, which I pulled out of your TEDx talk, which about no. Those folks told you no a couple times. I heard it right there.
Yeah, I hear no a lot. You always get more no's and yeses.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
but the key is not allowing the no's to stop you. It's like, all right, so that's a no. Let me try to find another way around it to get it done if it's something that you really want.
yeah. That's all. So after graduation, did you want to get a role there, like a job with that organization? Was there an opportunity there?
No, it wasn't. It was a small organization, and the people who work there, they've had their jobs for 20, 15,
Right,
20 years. They weren't going anywhere.
right.
So I ended up going back to Cleveland briefly to look for a job, and it was actually hard to find employment there. And then I just got a one-way ticket to DC because I thought that I wanted to be in DC, and I stayed on my friend's couch for like 6 months. And I couldn't find anything there. And I was flying to New York to visit one day from Cleveland. And I sat next to this older Italian guy on the plane, and we kind of hit it off on the plane. We talked the entire trip. And he was the executive director of a settlement house called the Hamilton Madison House in New York. His name is Frank Modica. And I asked him for his card before we separated, and he gave me his card. And now it's like 2 months later, and I'm like, well, maybe I should reach out to Frank to see if he has anything for me. But I didn't think he's going to remember me because I waited 2 months. So I gave him a call, and he said, Katrina, what took you so long? I've been waiting 8 weeks.
Oh my
He said,
God.
you already told everybody about me. And he created a job for me as the director of youth development at his settlement house on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. So just like that, I went back to New York and I got a job. My first job ever. I was never employed before. My first job ever was being a director at a settlement house in New York City when I was 22 years old.
What if you don't get on that particular plane? What if you decide you want to put your headphones on and not talk to anybody, right? Or he's not open to talking, or you didn't, or you never called him. Like, you think about those things. I think about those things. Like, if you didn't,
Yeah, I do. I do think about that. And my internship. So I was fresh off my internship, and they taught us about getting business cards.
yeah,
They had their gala at the Waldorf Astoria, and they challenged all the interns to get as many business cards as we could, and that we would get a prize.
yeah.
And I'm very competitive. I ended up winning, but I was just like randomly just walking up to people like, "Hi, how you doing? Get your card?" Getting cards. But I remember sitting on a plane. I remember what I learned in my internship about getting cards. So I also think about what if my internship didn't teach me about getting cards? I wouldn't have even asked him for his,
Right,
right?
right, right. It's funny because the thing that's challenging for me in relationships is like where you run into somebody and maybe like I've done this where I've like say you and I are somewhere or having a conversation, whether it's at a gala or a networking event, right? And for whatever reason, we don't exchange contact information. And then like I walk away and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like I gotta go back. I gotta make sure because I never know where these relationships might go and how we might be able to impact each other. So like I remember because I'm 46. So I remember like when there was no such thing as social media. And I would meet somebody and have a really cool relationship and connection with them, and then it was over. And like I'm talking about young, I'm talking maybe 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, right? Maybe I'm like 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, right? And I was like, I look back and go, if there was not a of course there was a mechanism. We could have written down each other's home phone number or something like that, right? But I remember not doing it. And I think about that a lot, like these lost opportunities. And I don't think about it from a selfish perspective, like, oh, I own an employee benefits agency and they could have been a client. No, man, that's like so transactional. I think about it like, what could we have possibly impacted each other's lives and the lives of all those other people we know? Because like when you and I meet, like I don't think it's just Katrina meets Tommy D and Tommy D meets Katrina, but it's those networks have the potential to collide, right? Like when I was watching the videos on your website and again the TEDx talk this morning, I was just thinking, man, we met in the summertime and I haven't really connected enough with Katrina to make an impact and bring her into my world and relationships and things like that. And that's something that I take very serious. So I go back to just the opportunities and gang, I guess what I'm saying is when you're out in the world amongst people, I always have business cards on me, mine, right? And I always am looking for opportunities. And when I meet a young person who's maybe in their 20s or in college or something, when I ask them, like they're still in college, and I say, do you have a LinkedIn page? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, yes, yes, man. And the ones who don't, I say, do me a favor, do you a favor, make a LinkedIn page. Let's get something going, because there's not, I was talking to one of my children and I was saying, listen, I think I might have you come out and do some camera work for me because it's difficult to do selfies all the time, like take pictures of myself. But if I had somebody else holding my phone, it would be easier. But I think of having my own kids when they're 17 and 18 years old to start a LinkedIn page. Obviously Instagram is a whole nother thing for young business people, but it's so important to build these networks. If you don't meet Frank Modica, what could happen? If you don't grab his card, right? If you decided, maybe he was just being nice to me, maybe he don't really want to help me out. None of these things happen, man. It's Brian Priolo says, wow, that's an amazing story. Fate is awesome. Checking it out on YouTube. Yeah, it is awesome. Things happen. I have a friend of mine who we collaborate on the networking group, TNG, which is a national networking organization. His name's Michael Goldberg. And he always says, peripherals wide. Like we don't know what's coming at us. And if you're open to, this is my stuff. If you're open to opportunities and you're ready to make that relationship, man, you never know where it can go. I'm rambling, but I think it's important to tell these stories, So Frank has this gig for you, creates this opportunity. It was the Hamilton. Give me the name of the settlement house one more time.
It's called the Hamilton Madison House.
Hamilton Madison House, as in like Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, or?
You know what? I never really knew where they got the Hamilton Madison House name from.
Okay. But this is an organization, though, he went back and created, he said to his team, like, I found this young woman who is going to be great for us. Let's create a role. I'm just waiting for her to call me. That's the vision I have.
Yeah. He never had my number. I only had his card. So he had no way of contacting me.
So which is interesting to me, too. So here's the other side of that, gang. Young people, make a business card. Have a business card, right? And be able to hand out your contact info. Or with technology, just grab your phone, flash each other on the LinkedIn thing. So, all right. So you go down there. I can't believe it. We went on. We got to take another quick break. We come back from the break. I want to hear about Hamilton Madison House, what that first role was for you, because I know in watching you and speaking to you, there was certainly an evolution in what you saw, and certainly what you saw at the top of organizations and who was running these organizations that really informed a lot of decisions you made. Right. And really, and that led to, I think, in a lot of ways, what Inspiring Minds NYC is all about. So when we come back, let's dive into that. We'll fast forward. I'll try to talk less and make you talk more. How's that sound? We'll be right back. Philanthropy and Focus.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. It's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on talkradio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
If you don't have your health, what do you really have? It's time to feel good in your body and shift from struggle to ease. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Tripp, your host of Nourish the Soul, where we explore the sacred wisdom of your body while you sit back, relax, and go on a journey of self-discovery. Join me every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to awaken your heart, transform your well-being, and unlock a deeper understanding of yourself.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
We're back. I'm actually sharing, if you're watching the video, sharing the website for the Imagine Awards, New York City Imagine Awards, New York City, or rather NYC ImagineAwards.com. I'm showing all the finalists. And it makes me think, here's one of my clients, actually, Venture House. I'm going to their gala in New York City on the 10th of this week, which is National Mental Health Day. And then this week on the 8th, I'll be at the gala for Transitional Services for New York, TSINY. It is certainly gala season in the nonprofit sector. But check out the website, NYCImagineAwards.com. And then you'll see, as I'm showing right now, the Innovation Award, Inspiring Minds NYC. And my guest is a finalist in the Leadership Excellence category for the New York City Imagine Awards, Katrena Perou, Executive Director, Founder, New York City, Inspiring Minds, New York City. Katrena, let's get into kind of this story. So you're now in New York City, right? With this job, you meet Frank, you get the gig. Now, what does that look like, and how does that take us to the next chapter of your career journey?
Yeah, I think it was a perfect starter job for me. Because again, I never even had experience like working for anyone before. But one of the things that stood out to me the most when I started that job, because I'm fresh off a basketball team, so I'm used to being part of a team environment. And when you're playing a part of a team, everyone knows their role, and you know your role, and you also understand how I understand how my role is going to connect with the other person's role, right? So if I'm the point guard, I know what the forward does, I know what the center does, and we all kind of working in harmony together, and we all understand what our shared goal is, which is to win, right? And when I started working, I realized that that's not how the workforce works. You can have a job and people don't even know what the person working next to them is doing. And sometimes they're not even always clear on what their role is or what their job description is. And then if you were to ask everybody what the shared goal, what the shared mission is, everybody might give a different answer. So that was one thing that was kind of like blatantly obvious for me when I started working.
Yeah, what do you do with that? Because that sounds like an obvious thing. Like we should all know. I am part owner in several companies, but I think one in particular, where there's only 5 of us, and we 3 owners and 2 employees, and we think in terms of like we have to continue to hone that mission and make sure everybody's bought in. And even in a small organization, sometimes not everybody knows where the organization is going, and we are a for-profit company. That must have looked unusual for you to see. Like, I've been playing on a team forever, right? And especially at a very high level, at the collegiate level, Final Four, the whole thing. And you walk into a business, and it sounds like it wasn't going in that direction where everybody didn't know their role. So, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I was like, well, I didn't like it. So
Yeah.
I had control over the people who I was managing, and that was the first thing that I tackled. It's like, why are we here? Like we had to have a shared goal, creating shared goals. One thing that my coach used to do after every game is that we would look at it. We had a goal board that was hanging up in our locker room, and it was like 20 goals on there. And after every game, we would look and get it, we'll look at our goals and see if we reached our goals after each game. And we will get a sticker. Like, we might get a sticker for no one scored over 20 points. We'll get a sticker on the board. We'll get a sticker for, the amount of rebounds that we got. And it was just, and then if we were to get all of our stickers, we would get like new sweatsuits or there's some kind of incentive for it,
Yeah.
right? And we rarely got all 20, but it was something but we all knew what our goals were. So I ended up creating a goal board for my organization. I was like, these are our goals and hung up on the wall, and it's like, and we would measure them. When we had our team meetings, it's like, how did we do with attendance? We didn't get it. All right. But it kind of makes you be intentional with talking about on a regular basis things that are important to you and your organization and being able to troubleshoot. Like, all right, well, we fell short. What do we need to adjust? Or maybe this goal is unreachable and we need to change the goal, but it keeps everybody on the same page as it relates to what we're working towards. And also everyone's role is different. With your job, how do you contribute to us reaching this goal?
Mhm.
What you do is very important, in order for us to get there. So I also make sure everybody was very clear on what their roles were. Not everybody had a job description. So I made job descriptions for everyone, and I found a really fun way for everybody to share their roles with each other in the team meeting where we knew where everyone presented, this is what I do, this is what you go to me for, but you'll be surprised, not just at that organization, a lot of organizations, people might not always know like what that person on their team is doing and how they could be a resource to you. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knew who everybody was, what they do, and how they could be a resource to you, and how it all ties to our overarching shared goals as a program department.
You ever hear the story about the man who was mopping floors at NASA, and like he was out one night and somebody asked him like, what do you do? And he's like, I'm helping us get to the moon. He didn't say I'm a janitor. He didn't say I mop floors. And no disrespect to people who do that work. I
Mhm.
don't mean it that way. The point is, the man was part of the larger vision, the larger mission, right?
Mhm.
So I guess as it relates to our sector, whether it's somebody in the development department, whether it's somebody in programs department, whether it is the ED, the CEO of the organization, you know, we all can be internal resources to each other from that internal networking perspective. And what do we do and how do we help, and how
Yep.
can we be part of that? We're all gonna go in this, we're going in the same direction. So how do we work together to best utilize each other, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll even end my team meetings with a huddle. We'll all put our hands in the middle.
Yeah, why not?
Say something,
Why not? Because that's fun, man. On
Yeah, it was
three, right?
fun. It was fun. We had chants too. We used to make chants.
Yeah,
Because even like, being an athlete, we had chants that we would say before games to get excited and to get hyped and to get
sure.
ready.
No
And
kidding.
when I would run my after school programs every Friday, it was like chant Friday.
Yeah.
All the kids and all the staff will get in the cafeteria, and we had like these little fun, corny, stupid chants we would say, but
Yeah.
it would raise the vibration in the room,
Of course
and
it
all
does.
the kids would be like, "Yeah!"
But because it's energetic, man. It's real.
Yeah.
That's not just like silly stuff to do. It like fires up. It's a state change. I think of a guy like Tony Robbins, like incantations and things like that, and changing state, and that's what it does, man. It's for real. I want to move this conversation to a point of where you start to take on some leadership in other organizations in your career and things that you've kind of opened your eyes to things you saw.
Yeah, so I did take a little bit of a break after I left Hamilton Madison House because I had my son, Quincy Peru, who's actually now in college. But I stayed home. I was a stay-at-home mom for a few
Yeah.
years.
Mhm.
And that was an interesting time for me because I started to try out new things. Because being at home with a child was really hard for me at first because I was always used to being out and about.
Sure.
Now I'm like still. So I
Mhm.
had to have a project as I'm raising my son. And my ex-husband at the time, my husband at the time, he was working in orthopedic surgery. And he's Haitian. And
Uh-huh.
he went to Haiti when the earthquakes happened, to support on a medical mission.
Sure.
And when he came back, he was just like really distraught, like, man, I don't feel like I scratched the surface over there. It was so bad. And and I had just went to this community school practicum at Columbia University. I went to this workshop there, and there's this initiative in New York City called Community Schools, where schools get holistic support, both medical and social emotional support, where everything a kid needs is in one building. And I remember going to a site visit at one of those schools, and I was inspired by all these resources these schools had. So I said to him, I said, well, what if we were to start a community school there? And he kind of laughed, like, how are we going to do that? We don't know anyone
In Haiti, you meant?
in Haiti.
Yeah.
He's like, I was like, you have medical connections, I have education connections. Maybe we can figure something out. And what I did that was an experiment is like, you know, it seems like it's something that's impossible, but what if it isn't? Right.
Mhm.
So I just I just invited some friends over who wanted to help with the stuff in Haiti. And there was one lady who came who I didn't know. Her name was Fran Justy, and she heard my vision of having this community school in Haiti. But then when I was done doing my presentation, she came up to me and she said, look, I have a nonprofit here in New York City that does work in Haiti, and I have a school with 400 kids. And then just like that, she gave it to me. So now I have this school with 400 kids in Haiti. And Fran and I, we raised, so I'm raising my son. So I was very disciplined and structured with my schedule. So he had nap time at the same time every day. So during his nap time, that was a time where I would work and I would try to fundraise and do what I could to help the school because they needed walls built. They needed meals every day. And yeah, and we ended up raising the money that we needed. A year later, I flew out there, I visited the school, and one of my favorite pictures to this day is a picture of me in front of the school with 400 kids, and they all have book bags and supplies. And I love that picture because it's symbolic to me of the power of our mind. Like that started off as an idea or a thought, and something that most would have thought was impossible. But when you act on your thoughts and ideas, you'll be surprised, how far it can go if you take the necessary steps to make it happen. And that's when I really started to believe that anything's possible. So when it was time for me to go back to work again, I was like, all right, well, if anything's possible, if failure didn't exist, what would I do? Instead of just going for what's right in front of me or what's presented to me, what do I really want to do? And I didn't have the answer right away. It was just like, but then what I'm doing right now with Inspiring Minds is exactly what I would do if failure didn't exist. And the reason why I say if failure didn't exist, because we don't really realize how much fear blinds us from being able to see what we really want to do. As soon as you take fear out the equation, the fear of failure out the equation, you're able to see things that you weren't able to see before, and I was able to see what I really wanted to do. And a lot of times people are afraid to go for that. But my thing is like, go for that, if that's what you really want, then start taking the steps to do those things. That's probably what your real purpose is in life.
If failure didn't exist, what would I do, gang? Take that one away, man. Katrina, what an inspirational story. That's why the organization is called Inspiring Minds, right? And that's what you do. Shout out to Vanessa Romulus. She says that's amazing. I agree. It is amazing. And you're changing lives every day, Katrina, and are the people that work with you. And there's such a community around what you do. And it's funny because there's so much I want to talk about, and we have to bring to a close in the next 12 minutes or so. So I want to come back and I want to really hit hard what Inspiring Minds NYC does, because it not only does it empowering the young people, but it empowers the other community partners that you work with. So I really want you to drive home the program of what this organization is doing. Maybe we can get into that Chalkbeat article, which you shared with me a couple months back, because that was, talk about bold leadership. I would definitely, we got to talk about Chalkbeat, and we got to get to a point of, here's what Inspiring Minds NYC actually does. Here's the other organizations you collaborate with. Here's what looks like how those organizations are able to elevate and expand and evolve into doing even more powerful work through these relationships. So when we come back, let's talk community. Let's talk the future of this organization. And I'm fired up to be with you on October 29th at the New York City Imagine Awards. And I don't know, I feel good vibes. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
All right, thank you.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Do that. Cut through the static, join me in the attic. Shout out to some more folks checking in. SJB checking in with a quote on YouTube saying the cost of fear equals the best possible future you could have had. The cost of fear. Gang, like, get outside of your comfort zone. Fear is there, right? But push through it, get through it, man. And then once you win, after you get through it, it just emboldens us, I think, to win again and go, oh, I've been through this nonsense before. This is just the fear checking in, trying to hold me back, whatever. Let's get past it, right? So Katrena Perou is a seasoned collective impact strategist with over 21 years of leadership experience in the nonprofit sector. She is a leader in this world, in the nonprofit space. I want to just read, we didn't get into this earlier, but I want people to understand some of your backstory too. Director of Groundwork Inc, CAMBA, you were at CAMBA, Chief Program Officer at Urban Arts Partnership, and obviously the founding executive director of the organization we've been talking about this morning. Also the WABA, the Women's American Basketball Association, showing up with some love and just saying we appreciate their thought-provoking conversation. These must be a lot of your folks making moves with Mariano, saying let's go, and with some fire. So I'm digging it. We're really blowing up today on the YouTube, so that's fun. That's definitely, I love YouTube myself, man. I learned so much from being in the world of YouTube. All right, Katrina, let's get into it. What is Inspiring Minds NYC? Like, what does it look like? I've been in a room with you. I've seen, your vision, but I want people to understand it.
So Inspiring Minds, we partner, we empower youth to confront critical community issues through culturally responsive educational programs. We partner with about 20 schools in New York City to provide leadership development programs during the school day, arts-based programs during after school, and all of our programs culminate with a Shark Tank, which provides an opportunity for our young people to receive seed funding and technical assistance for businesses that address issues in our community.
So I some of the things that came out of when we met, there's other organizations that you empower, like they've come in and do the program work for you. So when you set out on this road, you made sure that you had somebody to lead the women's program, but it wasn't like, I'm going to do the program. It was like, let me find organizations that have this type of program. Can you speak to that model?
I received my first grant in 2019 from the William Keenan Charitable Trust. And the model that I wanted to create was a collective impact model where I can partner with other organizations in the community to serve our students. And there are already a lot of small Black-owned organizations in Bedford-Stuyvesant that were doing amazing work, but they didn't really have the resources to really do it, like maybe at a higher level. So when I received the funding, I sat down 3 of them and I said, hey, let's work together. Brian Favors, who was running Breaking the Cycle consulting services, he's a mastermind when it comes to rites of passage programs for boys and girls and culturally responsive teaching. So I said, hey, why don't you run that part of the organization? And there's another a good friend of mine named Nakiba, and she runs an organization called YAX. And she created my civic engagement program. And she actually piloted the program for me for the first year. And the third person I sat down with was Lindsay Fauntleroy, who runs an organization called The Spirit Seed, and she focuses more on wellness, on health and wellness. And I said, look, we can create one leadership model where the kids go through all 3 programs, to develop leadership skills in a way that feels holistic. So I believe that, you know, when it comes to leadership, you can't lead if you don't understand who you are and where you came from. You know, so that's where Brian Favors came in with the Rites of Passage program and for kids learning their true history. I also believe that you can't lead if you don't understand how to take care of yourself. You know, how can you take care of others if you're not taking care of your own, you know, wellness? And that was something that I wish that I would have got more of as a leader, you know, as far as development, because no one really talks about that when it comes to leadership development. But leaders burn out.
Yeah, which part? The wellness part, like
The wellness part is
I
like
know.
you want to burn out, taking care of other people, and like a lot of civil rights leaders, activists had mental health issues in their latter years because it was stressful, and you
Sure.
know maybe they didn't have the tools to take care of themselves in that kind of way.
I want to just say one quick thing on that. Sorry to interrupt you, but that mental health conversation, I want to revisit that with you another day, another time, because I'm very focused on ending the stigma around the conversation about mental health and mental illness.
Yes,
We
I would love
need
to talk
to
to you about
continue.
that.
Yeah, because I got
Mhm.
t-shirts made up. We're doing a whole thing. I'm gonna have a whole campaign on that. So I want to come back to that with you at another time. But
Okay.
please continue with Inspiring
Yeah,
Minds.
so kids will cycle through that program, and then the third program they will cycle through was our civic engagement program. Because I also believe that you can't lead if you don't know how to activate your power in your community. So the first two programs are more about inner development, and the third program is more about, you know, external leadership and how you're activating it. So our kids actually cycled through all three programs, and it felt like one organization. You know, even though they were interfacing with three different organizations, they went through a holistic experience and we worked lock and step. Again, we had shared goals. We met on a regular basis, you know, and everybody knew what their role was in the process. And we all had our own superpowers. My superpower was doing the events. We had youth conferences that culminated what we did at the end of each semester. Um, uh, Engaging the community. So I helped the kids create all these social media campaigns that deal with social issues at that time, you know, and also just being an architect and figuring out how we're all going to work together. So again, two of them ended up transitioning out because they had their own organizations. But what they did was they helped create the model, and they helped me to train other people to then run those programs as they went on to continue to do their own thing. And Brian Favors, he actually ended up becoming one of my staff members. He's my director of education. And he ended up moving his contracts from his organization under Inspire Minds, so it ended up being a merger. And then we interface with so many other local organizations for one-off projects, or sometimes at one school, a school might want something that I don't do. But I know someone in the community who does it, so I would just bring them in. And it ends up being an ecosystem of organizations cycling in and out from the community to serve our kids. And it doesn't feel like 20 different organizations. It feels like one shared experience that kids are having.
I love that, and I'm just as I'm hearing you talk, the team environment again is coming up for me. The fact that you got these shared goals and so much to learn from the work you're doing. I think you and I need to do just like another interview like on how organizations can adopt the model that you've used. You know, not even if they're doing the same or similar work, but just from a structural perspective as to, you know, shared goals, team, know who's on the team, who does what, who am I passing the ball to, figuratively or sometimes literally, but depending on the organization. But that I want to talk to you more about. Um, there was a there was a story you told me where a young woman had her model around civic engagement or something like that, and you like empowered her and were like, well, why don't and she was like a student, right? Like at the time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of those stories, I think, where like the student has the answer and you're like, all right, so let's run with it, or let me help you get like. So tell me the one about the young woman. Then there was a gentleman who um wanted to get contracts for his program that I think he created as he was coming up through the work, through the Inspiring Minds NYC work, and you helped him. I'm sure he's just an example of many others you've helped how to go and get city contracts with the schools. So I guess start with that young woman whom I'm referring to. Her name I don't remember right now.
Yeah, her name is Kylie Richardson. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we culminate our year with running Shark Tanks. So
Yeah.
every year I give seed funding to about 8 to 10 high school kids to create programs that address issues in our community. And Kylie Richardson was one of those students. She was very, very passionate about politics. And I give them a purpose equation. The purpose equation is, what are you passionate about? Plus, what are you good at? Plus a problem you want to solve. And then when you combine all three of those things together, it points you to a purpose and also your own business. So Kylie was passionate about politics. She had the ability to teach and engage her peers. And the problem she wanted to solve was a disconnect that teens have when it comes to politics in her community, because it's not really communicated to them in a way where it's culturally responsive. So she created this program called Chuck's Roundtable, to do just that, to solve that problem. And it was amazing. Like, there's kids who normally wouldn't be interested in politics, and that became their favorite program. She just made it fun. They were debating, they were doing role play, they were learning, and I was like, you know what, this is better than our civic engagement program. Let's just adopt Kylie's program.
Right on.
And it's still her intellectual property. We helped her get her LLC, and that program expanded across 6 to 8 schools in New York City. And same for the other students. The young man you just brought up, his name is Arnold Ludd. He created a program called Gloves Up, Guns Down to address gun violence in our community. And since that time, he's been in about 8 to 10 schools. He got a chance to meet the mayor. He's gotten all kinds of contracts. He's featured on the news on a regular basis. So that's what I'm most passionate about, is helping people find their purpose. Like, I feel like I found mine, and I wanted to create an infrastructure and a platform for others to be able to not only exercise their purpose, but also find it as well.
I can't say how happy I am that I got the opportunity to meet you, and certainly this is just the beginning of a dialogue that I'd like to have with you for a long time, because can you just give me the purpose equation one more time?
It's what are you passionate about? 'Cause I believe that your purpose is most definitely tied to something you're passionate about. What do you have the ability to do? These can be natural, born gifts, or gifts that you developed over the years, and then a problem you want to solve, which is a very empowering thing to think about, because we can solve whatever problems we want.
Yeah.
So how are you creatively tying your passion and your skills to a problem you want to solve? And when you combine all three of those things, it will actually point you to the direction of what your purpose in life may be. And it could also be your own business.
Just incredible. Kylie Richardson, you said, and Alan, what was Alan's last name?
No, Arnold Ludd.
Oh, Arnold Ludd.
And they're two of many. We have a lot of kids who are creating businesses and running them in our community as we speak.
I wonder if we could play a cool game one day where we just bring on a bunch of these young people who've been super successful and interview them and help them tell their stories too.
They would love that.
Yeah, let's make it happen. I mean, maybe we'll do that in one of my lives where I'm going to bring a film crew out, and maybe we'll do a whole day of something like that. Could be fun. So we'll talk more about that. A lot of folks checking in on YouTube. You can always, we stream on like 6 different platforms, gang. You want to check in with me, TommyD.NYC on Instagram, the Nonprofit Sector Connector on Instagram. And I just made this new Instagram too, called Ending the Stigma Together, because it's incredibly important that we end the stigma around mental health conversations. Because listen, we all have challenges and we got to talk about them. Let's open up. You go to the website, imyouth.org/inspiring-minds-NYC. What about your Instagram stuff you want to shout out real quick before we go?
Yeah, our Instagram is Inspiring Minds NYC. It's Facebook, Inspiring Minds NYC, and on X, we are IMNYC12.
IMNYC12. Listen, everybody, make it a great weekend. We'll be back next week in the show. Katrina, thanks for everything. I'm looking forward to seeing you in October at the 29th, October 29th at the Imagine What's Gang. If you want to check in with me, Tommy D at philanthropyinfocus.com is email, because if you want to learn more about the Imagine Awards and you can't find the website, which I told you was nycimagineawards.com. If you can't find it, call me, text me. We'll figure it out. We'll get you worked out. Thanks again, Katrina. Make it a great day, everybody. See you next week. Bye.
All right. Thank you.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.